Hello and welcome back to Practical Knife Reviews. Today we're going to be looking at a very budget knife that you can get. This is the Ryder Red Pick Bone Canoe. You can see this is a slip joint like we typically have for our folding knives that we review. You can see it has a main spear blade which has a nice like leaf shape to it almost, more so than just a traditional spear point blade. Let's get a close-up on that. And you can see it's got a reverse etch on it, a reverse frosted etch. It says red pick bone. We'll look at all the fit and finish and whatnot on the inside. And then it's got a small pen blade as its secondary blade. Again, we'll look at all of the fit and finish on the inside because as you can see, we've got snow and I don't want to keep Mom out here for too long. So we'll just do the cutting basically out here. But yeah, we'll just start cutting right away, I guess. We'll look at how sharp it is with a bit of paper, which is a little bit wet now because it's snowing, but that I think tells you what you need to know on the main blade. Let's look at the secondary blade. And in case you haven't noticed, and I will mention on the inside, these have half stops on both blades. Again, I think it speaks for itself. No need to really comment on how sharp it is, because it's basically laser sharp. And it pretty much came like that. I literally just stropped the edge and that was that. Yeah, bone handles. Again, we'll do all the fit and finish stuff on the inside. I'm trying to expedite this process on the outside here. Let's look at some cardboard. I'm only going to be using the main blade. With knives that have a large main blade and then like a small pen blade as a secondary blade, I generally never use the secondary blade. I just keep it laser sharp and save it for if I need something like a scalpel or something like that, something where I need something absolutely sharp, and then I just use the main blade as a beater blade. But let's check how it does on cardboard. Yeah, there's almost no resistance, a little bit more resistance on that last cut, but I think it was just the way I was going. Same here, a little bit more, but I think that was because I was going through every layer of the cardboard. But yeah, I mean, it cuts through pretty well. So, does well on paper, does well on cardboard. How does it do on peeling apple? This apple's a little bit soft. I'm actually not going to eat this one because it's starting to get a little bit rotten, but you can see, even with a slightly soft, rotten apple, you can peel it just fine. Again, keeping in mind, as I mentioned on every single time that we do a folding knife, I'm not the best apple peeler in the world. But you can see even with this apple where the skin is puckering because of how soft it is.
And the reason that is because it's snowing here. It's gotten very cold. It freezes at night. And these apples were picked in the forest behind our house off some trees back there. So they froze, and then this is what you get.
Yeah, that's right. They taste good while they're frozen, and then if you let them sit at room temperature for a little while after that, they get a bit mealy and not quite as nice. But you can see, I mean, this is a good peeling knife. This is actually hollow ground. Not sure if you can see it here, but we'll look on when we get to the inside. This actually has a hollow grind where it's concave. Let's just throw the apple out in the woods for the deer to eat. And then we'll do some quick feather sticking just to see how it does on wood. This is pine. It is a very soft wood. Got hung up there for a second. These are not the prettiest feathers in the world, but well, that one was okay. They're not too hard to make on the pine anyway with this, because it's very, very sharp, and that hollow grind makes it want to slice really well. One thing I will note, the corners here are a little bit sharp, so when you're really squeezing tight you can feel them, but so that's the uncomfortable side. The comfortable side though is that with these canoes, the way that they're designed, and we'll take a look at on the inside, is that your finger can either go here and sit right in front of that pen blade, which is very comfortable, or you can choke up right there, just behind the kick. Use it as like a finger choil. Also pretty comfortable because then your middle finger goes in that little spot. But for feather sticking, I'm going to do this. If you were carving, you'd probably choke up here. But yeah, I mean, these aren't the greatest feathers. The hollow grind's very slicey, but it doesn't really wedge the wood apart like you see on most of the other knives that we have, where they're either convex or Scandi ground. So yeah, you can make feathers, but they're not the greatest. Let's check on oak now. This is red oak, hardest wood in our forest, and we're kind of having the same thing here. It's slicing through really easy, but with the hollow grind, it you know, it doesn't really wedge the wood apart. So you are having to like literally slice through all of it rather than wedge through it. But you can see this is really sharp. So you can make feathers. They're not great because you can't really wedge the wood apart, but you certainly can slice with it. And if you were doing like really detailed carving and stuff like that, with how sharp this is and how thin it is behind the edge, you certainly could do that. It's just when you're trying to do large slices, this isn't really ideal. But we'll continue to look at this on the inside to get Mom out of the snow. So stay tuned. We'll be right back in with some measurements and a look at the fit and finish. But before we go in, Mom, what do you think of this knife before we go in?
I'm glad you asked. It's one of my favorite knives. I love the Canoe design. And the shape of the blade, that leaf blade, is super nice. I love the half stops. I can actually pull it open, which normally I have a hard time.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. The pull on this is about a 4. It's not the weakest pull, and it does have a good walk and talk. It's about a 4, which my mom can handle.
And then it's called a Rough Rider, and it's got the little Teddy Roosevelt logo on it.
The company is Rough Rider. You can see on the shield here, they've got the man on the horse.
So the only thing that I would change at all, I said where it says RT, I think if they'd have had a canoe paddle there, it would be a really neat art concept knife. And for the color and everything, this is one of my favorite knives. Yeah,
and I told you that this isn't actually an RT, it's an underlined R, but I agree, I'm not a big fan of the underlined R on the bolster. I know it would be difficult to make a different design on the bolster for every single pattern that they do, but yeah, a canoe paddle on the bolster on a canoe knife, that would be pretty sweet. But now let's go inside. We'll get more of your thoughts on it in just a bit. We're back on Practical Knife Reviews, and we're looking at, again, the Rough Rider Red Pickbone Canoe. Let me get the number for that. It's written on here. Let's see if I can get that. Yep. RR1684. These blades, both the spear and the pen blade, are 440A. The scales, let's get a nice close view here. These are, well, red pickbone. Brass pins. This one and this one are pretty smooth. This one protrudes a little bit because it falls right in. You can see right in one of these jigged areas. So it protrudes a little bit, and same on the other side. Protrudes a little bit. You can hear my nail catch it. More on that side. So a little bit of protruding. Nickel silver shield, pins, bolsters, brass liners. You can see there's 2 back springs, 1 for each blade. This blade, as I said before, is about I'd say a 4 on the pull. Nice walk and talk though. It's very smooth, very strong half stop. And the spear point's maybe a 4.5. It's a little bit stronger. Maybe a 5, but I'd say a 4.5. Did I say spear point? I meant pen blade. Don't remember what I said. Again, very nice walk and talk. The fit and finish on this is quite excellent, if I do say so myself. You can see that might look like there's a a bump there, but there's not. It's tight, no gapping at all between the liners and the springs, or the springs between and the other springs. No gapping between the bone and the bolsters on either side, and the shield is recessed and doesn't protrude at all. The blades, let's get some light more forward here. The blades, if we can see, do not contact the liners at all. There's a little bit of blade rub, but that's just inherent to the Canoe design. Pretty much every Canoe I've ever seen has had blade rub between the two blades. Making a mess here with our lights. But overall, the fit and finish on this is just excellent. And if you like the red pick bone, this is, yeah, it looks really, really nice. Mal, while I'm getting ready for the measurements, why don't you talk about what you like about this knife?
I think it might be my favorite knife.
Sorry.
I like everything about it. I love the color, the red color of it. It's not a gaudy red. It's more of a muted, rusty red. But the Canoe shape, and then the shape of the blade that is called the leaf blade.
Well, it's a spear blade, but it's not like a traditional spear, because as you can see, it's more narrow here. Actually, I might as well measure it. It's more narrow here at the base than it is right here in the belly.
I even like the writing on the blade. I like the shield with the Rough Riders and the Theodore Roosevelt on his horse.
This is about, I'd say 14 millimeters wide at that point, and it is 16 millimeters wide at that point. So you see, it does swell out just ever so slightly to the belly. Sorry to cut you off, Ma.
I really like that knife. The only thing that could make it better for me is get rid of the RT and put a Canoe paddle.
Yeah, so we're looking at overall length is about 6 1/8. Maybe 6 1/4. We'll call it 6 1/4 inches long overall. The spear point main blade is about 2 5/8 inches long, with a cutting length of 2 1/4 inches. Let's get a measurement on the pen blade. The pen blade has a length of about 2 inches total, with a cutting length of 1 3/4 inches. As I said before, let's see if we can see it with these lights. These blades are both hollow ground. You might be able to tell with the light there. These are, I mean, it's not the deepest hollow grind, but they are hollow ground, where this is concave here. Maybe here we'll be able to tell. I don't know. Maybe you can tell. Probably not. It's easier when it's actually in your hand, but it is maybe right there you can tell that it's hollow ground. Anyway, these are hollow ground. Let's get a weight measurement on it, and then I'll let Mom talk a little bit more about it before we wrap it up. Sorry for sniffling. I just got back from a walk, and it's nice and snowy out, but no fox out this time, which was certainly sad. Okay, we're looking at 84 grams, which is 3 ounces dead on the dot. So yeah, I mean, it's substantial for its size. After all, there's a lot of metal in it. I mean, between the metal bolsters, the brass liner, the back springs, and the 2 blades. Plus, this is actual, it's dyed cow's bone, if I don't think I mentioned that yet. Dyed cow's bone. But yeah, I mean, it's substantial for its size, but it's not heavy. And yeah, and I guess the other thing that I should mention, 2 more things that I just thought of. The reason why this pattern is called a canoe, in case you were unfamiliar with this pattern before, is because if you don't look at the blades, you just look at the frame itself, it looks like a canoe. Like, this is the back of the canoe, this is where you'd sit in the canoe, And then here's the front of the canoe.
That's why it needs a paddle.
And you'd be floating down the river like this. The other thing is Ma, if I didn't already tell you how much this knife cost, how much would you guess that this knife would cost? Before that, 440A steel on the blades. Easy to sharpen, doesn't hold the edge the longest, but for most, regular everyday tasks, you'll be absolutely fine. So 440A, dyed cow bone, 2 blades, nice fit and finish. What would you think a knife like that would go for, Ma?
I would easily pay $20 for that knife.
Yeah, well, it's half that. It's I think it's $9.99. It's either $9.95 or $9.99 at SMKW. So
yeah, very good deal. I love that thing.
yeah, it's a really, I think it's an excellent deal. And this is about the best fit and finish I've seen on any Rough Rider. There's no gapping. It looks like there's gapping when I'm looking at the camera. It looks like there's gapping between these 2 springs, but I can assure you there is not. I can put my fingernail right over both of them. There's no gapping. It must just be the way that the light, yeah, if I turn it around, that gap disappears, just the way the light was. So there's no gapping anywhere. Everything's tight. Let's check for blade play, and then we'll call it a day. No blade play at all. What more could you want for 10 bucks? Any final thoughts, Ma?
No, I love that knife.
So this is a Ma recommended and approved one.
Oh yeah, and it's small enough to carry easily in skinny jeans.
Which you have been, I should mention.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for watching our review of the Rough Rider Red Pickbone Canoe RR1684 on Practical Knife Reviews. We'll see you again real soon.